Hey guys, I've got the next chapter, chapter 14, The Missing Key. Omri's brothers were already sitting at the tea table when the two boys rushed in. Hi, what's for tea? Omri asked automatically. Gillen and Adiel didn't answer. Adiel had a funny smirk on his face. Omri hardly noticed. Let's make a sandwich and eat it upstairs, he suggested to Patrick. They slapped some peanut butter on bread, poured mugs of milk, and hurried up the stairs to Omri's room, whispering all the way. How long does it take? Only a few minutes. Can I see her? Wait till we get upstairs. Omri opened the door and stopped dead. The white medicine cupboard was gone. Oh, where is it? Gasped Patrick. Omri didn't say a word. He turned and rushed downstairs again with Patrick behind him. Okay, where have you hidden it? He shouted as soon as he burst into the kitchen. I don't know what you're referring to, said Adiel loftily. Yes, you do. You've taken my cupboard. And supposing I did. It was only to teach you a lesson. You're always taking my things and hiding them. Now you'll see how funny it isn't. When did I last take anything of yours? Tell me one thing in the last month. My football shorts, said Adiel promptly. I never touched your stupid shorts. I already swore I hadn't. I had to miss games again today because I didn't have them, and I got a detention for it. So you can be grateful I'm only punishing you tit for tat and not bashing you in, said Adiel with maddening calm. Omri felt so furious he even wondered for a moment whether it was worth bashing Adiel in. But Adiel was enormous and it was hopeless. So after gazing at him for another moment with hate-filled eyes, Omri turned and dashed upstairs again, almost falling over Patrick on the way. What do you do? Look for it, of course. He was turning Adiel's room upside down like a madman when Adiel, slowly mounting the stairs in the direction of his homework, heard the racket and came running. He stood in the doorway, looking at the shambles of pulled-out drawers, gutted cupboards, and furniture pulled awry. You little swine, he howled and dived at Omri. Omri fell to the ground with Adiel on top. I'll tear everything. You've got to pieces till you give it back to me, Omri shouted in jerks as Adiel shook and pummeled him. Then cough up my shorts. I haven't got your stinking shorts, screamed Omri. Are these them? Asked a small voice in the background. Adiel and Omri stopped fighting, and Adiel, sitting astride, twisted his neck to see. Patrick was just lifting a crumpled navy blue object from behind a radiator. Omri felt the anger go out of Adiel. Oh, yes, it is, as a matter of fact. How did they get there? But Omri knew perfectly well how. Adiel had hung them there to dry, and they dropped off backward. Adiel scrambled up, looking distinctly sheepish. He even helped Omri to his feet. Well, but you have hidden things in the past, he mumbled. How was I to know? And I have my cupboard now. Yes, it's up in the attic. I piled a whole lot of stuff on it. Omri and Patrick took the stairs to the attic two at a time. They found the cupboard quite quickly and under a heap of bits and pieces, but Omri had carried it down to his room again before he made the fatal discovery. The key! The little twisted key with its red satin ribbon was missing. Once again, Omri ran into Adiel's room to find Adiel uncomplainingly putting things straight. What happened to the key? What key? There was a key in the cupboard door with a red ribbon. I didn't notice. They went out and closed the door. Omri was now feeling desperate. We've got to find it. It doesn't work without the key. They searched the attic till supper time. Never had Omri so clearly seen the point of all his mother's urgings to keep everything in its proper place. The attic was just a sort of glory hole where they could play and leave a total mess, and that was what they always did. Only clearing spaces when they needed them for a new layout or for some special game, and their way of clearing was just to shove things aside into ever more chaotic heaps. Underneath the heaps were all the myriad little oddments that were small enough to filter through the bigger things. Marbles, wheels of matchbox cars, bits of Lego, small tools, parachute men, cards, and so on and so on. Plus all sorts of fragments that could have been almost anything. At first, they just raked through everything, but after a while, Omri realized that they would have to clear up systematically. Otherwise, it was like the old saying about looking for a needle in a haystack. He found some boxes, and they began sorting things into them. Lego here, parts of games there, water pistols, tricks, and novelties in another. Bigger things they stacked neatly onto what his father rather bitterly called the shelves provided, which normally stood empty, since everything was on the floor. In an amazingly short time, the floor was clear, except for a few odd things they hadn't found homes for, and a great deal of mud, dust, and sand. Where did all this come from? Asked Patrick. Oh, Gillen brought up boxes of it from the garden to make a desert scene, said Omri, months ago. We might as well sweep it up. He looked around. Despite his anxiety about the key, he felt a certain pride. The room looked entirely different. There was real playing space now. He went downstairs and fetched a broom, a dustpan, and a soft brush. We'll have to do this carefully, he said. It'd be terrible if we threw it away with the sand. We could sieve it, suggested Patrick. Ooh, that's a good idea, in the garden. He carried the sand out in a cardboard box, and Omri borrowed his father's large garden sieve. Omri held it, and Patrick spooned it in the sand and earth with a trowel. Several small treasures came to light, such as a 10-pence piece, but no key. Omri was in despair. He and Patrick sat down on the lawn under a tree, and Omri took the two little men out of his pocket. Where, woman? Little Bear asked instantly. Never mind the women. Where's the victuals? Asked the ever-hungry Boone grumpily. Omri and Patrick fed them some more chocolate, and with a deep sense of misery, Omri produced the plastic Indian woman from his pocket. Little Bear stopped chewing his chocolate the moment he saw her and gazed in rapture. It was obvious he was half in love with her already. He reached out a hand and tenderly touched her plastic hair. Make real. Now, he breathed. Can't, said Omri. Why can't? Asked Little Bear sharply. The magic's gone. Now Boone stopped eating too, and he and Little Bear exchanged a frightened look. You mean you can't send us back? Asked Boone in an awe-stricken whisper. Never? We got to live in a giant's world forever? It was clear that Little Bear had been explaining matters. Don't you like being with us? Asked Patrick. Well, I wouldn't want to hurt your feelings none, said Boone, but just think how you'd feel if I was as big to you as you are to me. Little Bear? Asked Omri. Little Bear dragged his eyes away from the plastic figure and fixed them like little bright crumbs of black glass on Omri. Omri good, he pronounced at last. But Little Bear Indian brave, Indian chief. How be brave, how be chief with no other Indians? Omri opened his mouth. If he had not lost the key, he might have rashly offered to bring to life an entire tribe of Indians, simply to keep Little Bear contented. Through his mind flashed the knowledge of what this meant. It wasn't the fun, the novelty, the magic that mattered anymore. What mattered was that Little Bear should be happy. For that, he would take on almost anything. They all sat quietly on the lawn. There seemed nothing more to say. A movement near the back of the house caught Omri's eyes. It was his mother coming out to hang up some wet clothes. He thought she moved as if she were tired and fed up. She stood for a moment on the back balcony, looking at the sky. Then she sighed and began pegging the clothes to the line. On impulse, Omri got up and went over to her. You haven't found anything of mine, have you? He asked. No, I don't think so. What have you lost? But Omri, too ashamed to admit he'd lost the key she told him to be so careful of. Oh, nothing much, he said. He went to Patrick, who was showing the men an ant. Boone was trying to pat his head, but it wasn't very responsive. Well, Omri said, we might as well make the best of things. Why not bring the horses out and give the fellows a ride? This cheered everyone up, and Omri ran up and brought the two horses down carefully in an empty box. Next, Patrick stamped about 2 square feet of the lawn hard to give the horses a really good gallop. Quite a large black beetle alighted on the flattened part, and Little Bear shot it dead with an arrow. This cheered him up a bit more, though not much. While the horses grazed on the fresh grass, he kept giving great lovesick sighs, and Omri knew he was thinking of the woman. Maybe you'd rather not stay the night now, Omri said to Patrick. Oh, I want to, said Patrick, if you don't mind. Omri felt too upset to care one way or the other. When they were called into supper, he noticed that Adil was trying to be friendly, but Omri wouldn't speak to him. Afterward, Adil took him aside. What's up with you now? I'm trying to be nice. You got your silly old cupboard back. It's no good without the key. Well, I'm sorry. It must have dropped out on the way up to the attic. On the way up to the attic? Omri hadn't thought of that. Will you help me find it? He asked eagerly. Please, it's terribly important. Oh, all right then. The 4 of them hunted for half an hour. They didn't find it. After that, Gillen and Adil had to go out to some function at school, so Patrick and Omri had the television to themselves. They took up the 2 men and explained this new magic, and then they all watched together. First came a film about animals, which absolutely transfixed both the little men. Then a Western came on, Omri thought they ought to switch it off, but Boone, in particular, set up such a hullabaloo that eventually Omri said, "Oh, all right, just for 10 minutes then." Little Bear was seated cross-legged on Omri's knee, while Boone, who had somehow gravitated back to Patrick, preferred to stand in his pocket, leaning on his elbows along the pocket top with his hat on the back of his head, chewing a lump of tobacco he had on him. Patrick, who'd heard of something of Cowboy's habits, said, "Don't you dare spit. There are no spittoons here, you know." "Let me listen to 'em talking, will ya?" said Boone. "I just can't get over how they talk." Before the 10 minutes was up, the Indians in the film started getting the worst of it. It was the usual sequence in which the pioneers' wagons are drawn into a circle and the Indians are galloping around them while the outnumbered men of the wagon train fire muzzles loading guns at them through the wagon wheels. Omri could sense Little Bear was getting restive and tense. As Brave and Brave bit the dust, he suddenly leaped to his feet. "No good pictures," he shouted. "What you talking about?" Boone yelled tauntingly across the chasm dividing him from Little Bear. "That's how it was. My ma and pa was in a fight just like that, and my pa told me he done shot near enough 15, 20 of them dirty savages. White men move on to land, use water, kill animals. So what? Let the best man win, and we won. Yippee!" he added as another television Indian went down with his horse on top of him. Omri was looking at the screen when it happened. In a lull on the soundtrack, he heard a thin, faint whistling sound and heard Boone grunt. He looked back at Boone swiftly and his blood froze. Cowboy had an arrow sticking out of his chest. And that's the end of part 1.